The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hello, this is Edward Kastner for another edition of Making It Happen. Right beside me tonight, I have Justin running from Running Inc., and I'm not making that up, by the way.
Right. Yep. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No problem.
Yep.
On a wet night.
Right. Yes. Very rainy all the way. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the history of Running Inc. and what gave you the vision to do it.
Sure. So Running Incorporated was named after our last name, Running. My parents founded the company in 1994 in Viroqua. We started out as a small cab company in Viroqua, and we've expanded.
And why did they feel the need?
Well, we live in a very rural community in western Wisconsin, and there was no other public transportation options in the community.
Okay.
And there was some state initiatives to get transportation into rural communities, and that's how we got our start there.
Okay.
Yep. And then we were strictly taxis for a number of years, and then we were awarded the paratransit contract in Appleton. And a couple years after that, this contract became available, so we bid on this and were awarded the contract for Go Transit paratransit services.
What other counties do you cover? I was looking at the website. You guys cover a wide variety of counties.
We do. We're in about 32 different municipalities across
Holy
the
cow.
state. Yes.
Are you hoping to expand more?
If maybe, you never know. Every year when bidding opportunities come available in the state, we always look at them, and if they fit geographically with other systems we have, we do tend to bid on them. Yes.
Okay. Now, do you guys tend to bid low and go high? I don't know how that whole thing works. I mean.
Sure. So when you bid for these services, there's a number of criteria that they use.
Look at?
Yeah. And price is just one of the many criteria they look at. Yeah. We're rarely the cheapest by a lot. We're usually either the lowest price or very close to the lowest price. But the quality of service is also considered, and through our years of experience and knowledge of the industry, we've been able to provide a good quality service, and that's.
Do they look at your transportation record too?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, they check references, talk to other communities where we're operating, talk to municipal leaders in those communities to get a sense of how we've been doing there and take that into consideration.
How have you been doing in the community as far as serving? We
believe, and based on the correspondence I've had with the local supervisor and the drivers and city folks here, we feel that we're providing a very good service here. We don't get very many complaints regarding service issues in the area, so we feel that we're doing very well.
One suggestion I had while I was just thinking about asking you another question was I would send out like client surveys. Do you guys do that too, or?
Sometimes we do. Some of our cities, we do it more than others. Those are often the municipality will ask for a survey, so we'll go ahead and put one out in the vehicles. Or if we see that there's a service, the service might be lacking somehow, we'll put out a survey to try to identify exactly where the holes in the service are and try to address them that way.
Okay, to backtrack a little bit, you said you grew up in like Vernon County.
Yep, Vernon County.
You said it was a very they didn't have many transportation options.
Correct.
Then how did people get around in Vernon County before Running Inc. came?
Friends and neighbors. I believe there was no public service options. There was no taxis. I believe going back, and this is going back, when our company was started, I was still in high school, so I wasn't very in tune to what county programs were out there, but I believe there was some county options, but they were very limited in availability and times of operation.
I mean, how did your parents see that there was a need, or
they were out in the community. My mom worked at a nursing home in the area as a a worker there, and my dad has had, he was in law enforcement early in his career in Vernon County. He worked for the Viroqua Police Department, and then we had a dairy farm for a number of years, and then we sold the farm, moved back to town, and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And he started the first bit of transit we went into was specialized medical vehicle, SMV.
Okay.
It's a direct service where a person calls, we take you to your appointment, sit at your appointment with you, take you home. It's not a taxi, it's more of a specialized medical vehicle. Did that for a few years, and that's when we found out about the program for the rural area. Worked with local politicians, the mayor of Viroqua, to get the funding for the program in the city of Viroqua.
So this is their way of giving back, huh?
Yep. They enjoy. It's a great program because it really helps out people in the community that don't have other options for transportation.
Now I'm really gonna put you on the spot here, but how many clients do you guys serve a day?
A day. I know we serve over 1 million a year.
Million a year. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's over. We provide over 1 million trips a year. I want to say, in the Oshkosh area here, it's, in the. I have the monthly numbers, so I'm going to guess a couple hundred a day.
Okay. What kind of pride does that give you as an owner, and to see the progress that disabled transportation is making? Because it's still an issue, because people with disabilities, even though they're disabled, they still want to get out there and become part of society, and you guys are allowing this.
Right. That's one of the things that when we're hiring for drivers, when we're looking for staff, that's one of the things that we try to help them understand, that you're more than just a driver getting people to the grocery store. You're actually giving people a sense of freedom that maybe wouldn't have that sense of freedom without our services. So you really are being a community asset, and you get to help people that have limited mobility options, and that's why we do it.
Yeah. Another suggestion I had before coming on the show tonight was, having a meet the driver section would be nice on the website.
Sure.
So that way, if somebody feels uncomfortable taking the cab, they're like, "Hey, I already know my driver. I see a picture of them on your site."
That's a very good suggestion. Absolutely. Yep.
So.
And here, you know some of the folks that operate our service, and we don't have a lot of turnover here as much as we do in some of our other areas.
Yeah.
A lot of our drivers, I'm certainly not going to say all of them, but we've had a good steady stable of drivers here, so folks do get to know them, and then it becomes more of a social outing, even if you are going to, say, a doctor's appointment.
How do people become eligible for the service? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that say, "How do I become eligible? I wanna get out in the community, but I don't know how to apply or qualify for this."
Sure. So in order to utilize our services here in Oshkosh, you have to contact Go Transit, and there's a certification process that they'll walk you through to determine what level of services you're eligible for.
Okay.
We're not the only provider that provides service for the city of Oshkosh's Go Transit system. There are, we serve our services strictly for the non-ambulatory passengers. Then they have an ambulatory division that I believe, is it City Cab or it was Cabulance.
City Cab or Cabulance.
City Cab or Cabulance that they, I believe, still operate, and I think there may even be one other option that you can qualify for through Go Transit.
Have you guys ever thought about doing out-of-town runs? I know that's been a topic that I've often wondered, because sometimes I have medical appointments in Appleton. I'm like, because I don't want to, sometimes I don't want to have to pay. I think the going rate for Cabulance right now, non-medical, is $20. Like,
sure.
It can be very costly, and I'm like, gee, why can't I take, running up there? Why do I have to, contract with Cabulance? Because Cabulance, they don't have as many drivers now.
Sure. So one of the barriers of the service is when we're being a contracted provider, we are obligated to follow the constraints of the contract for the type of service we offer. We do have an option to have a non-contracted service in the area.
Okay.
that we could go outside of the area, but we have not done that in any of our cities because we really want to focus on the contracted area. And as demand has grown, that always seems to be, when you look at where do you want to grow, you have to grow where you have to be before you can grow where you would like to grow.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a need. All up and along the Fox Valley here, there's a need to get some connected transportation. And I don't know the political, boundaries. And
could you guys get more funding from the state? I know it's tight, and I know
Right.
budgets are tight.
Right. I know there's county initiatives out there that do offer transportation between the municipalities.
Okay.
But I believe just like early transportation that I was talking about in Vernon County, for instance, it's very limited. And it may be very heavily used, so it may be hard to get. We're always, anytime there's an opportunity for some sort of an expansion like you're talking about, we're very interested in providing it. And we do our best to communicate that with the folks, in Madison or wherever to get increases in service. But lately, through the political financing and the budgeting and stuff, transit's taken a hit over the years.
Yes.
So it's been hard to maintain even the current level of service. So we've fought very hard to make sure that the current level of service stays where it needs to, so folks don't lose what they're already getting.
And if you just want to talk about how difficult is that to keep, because the state's cutting all the time. It's
Right.
very hard to.
Right. It is hard, and transportation has become a pretty universal program. Both sides of the aisle politically, I think, have see the need for it and are supporting it. There was a time where there had to be cuts in the state, and transportation was a spot that got cut. But that's come back over the last few years, and it'll be interesting to see with our new governor how transportation changes over the next couple of years with funding. And if funding does happen to increase, that will give us more options to do expansion type projects that you're.
Another question that I had that just came into my head while we were sitting here during the interview was, why not have a couple of passengers serve on a committee so that way they can give you feedback of how that town or city is doing. Mm-hmm. You could have them throughout all the state, and that way you can even come together and have one big conglomerate and be like, hey, here's how we're doing, here's how this county is doing. That way you know the needs more,
right.
the need more,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they do have, and they're often publicized through the state legislative websites. They do have listening sessions around the state annually when it comes time for budgeting and type stuff, but that doesn't allow the time to get really into the meat like you're talking about. And I'm not aware of any state committees where those options exist, but I'm sure they're out there. And we just need to, you contact your legislator in your area and let them know the importance of transportation and ask them to continue to support transportation. And
no, this would be just specifically for running, because
Sure.
you guys want to know how each community is
Sure.
doing. You want to know,
Sure.
because you provide the service to how many counties?
Counties, I've never counted the counties, but it's roughly 32 municipalities.
32 municipalities.
And that's mostly cities, but it's many cities in many different counties across the state. So we're all from the Fox Valley all the way to the Mississippi River, almost to the Illinois border, and up to northern Wisconsin and everywhere in between. So
if someone wants to take, if someone that's disabled or non-ambulatory wants to take a ride, and maybe they're struggling or nervous, what would you tell them?
I would encourage them to go ahead and to contact us, and if they do have concerns that if they may be a little nervous, share that information with the dispatch office when you call, and they'll share that with the driver, so that way the driver knows that to do what they can to help you.
Because it may be their first time.
Right.
And
Yep. And public transportation can be a scary or nerve-wracking experience your first couple times out until you get comfortable with the drivers and the vehicles. So if you do have any hesitation at all, share that information with our staff, and we'll make sure the drivers know that and they can help in any way they can.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you too. Because a lot of times I call Roku and I'm like, why doesn't running just have an office in Oshkosh? And it would make it easier, I'm like,
Sure.
Because the people in Roku don't know, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Sure. No, I understand. What we've done over the years, so our business model in terms of call taking started out exclusively to where all calls came into our Viroqua call center. We started out with one taxi company, and obviously they came into Viroqua. That's where it was. And as we grew, we just kept the calls coming in there. Yeah. And as we grew, there was a couple opportunities to put call centers in the cities where the calls were taking place. And what we found with that, and it's not true everywhere, but what we found with that is having the centralized office in Viroqua, where I'm at, any time of the day I can walk into any office and I can get a feeling for how the system's running that day. When the system is ran over here, I don't get over here as, daily like I do into my office in Viroqua, and I think I lose like a personal connection with the system by not being able to hear the drivers talking on the radio or hear the phones being answered, or hear if there's issues coming in. I do know that when you have the system being answered in the city where it's in, likely you get, when you hire a new person, they might know more right off the bat than a new person from Viroqua. But we do our best with maps and Google Maps and all that stuff to try to help out with that. But that's one of those things where if a customer calls and has an issue with the dispatcher that's not able to help them correctly, if they'll communicate that, maybe ask to talk to a supervisor, communicate that with us so we can get that person some more training to the local area and do our best to make sure that you don't feel like they're not in your community. That's a tough one.
Because when I call in, sometimes I'll give them an address and they won't know where the location is, right. and I just thought if you guys had an office in Oshkosh or a centralized office, then you could communicate with Viroqua and try to connect more and maybe even serve more people.
Right. So we do have an office here, but we don't take calls in that office.
Okay.
So every day when the calls come in, we build the schedule for the next day in our Viroqua office, and at the end of the day, we kind of turn that over to the local Oshkosh office, and then they review it to make sure that all the calls make sense. So we pick them up at appropriate times and locations.
And how are all those calls transported? Are they transported through email or?
Nope, it's a web-based software that we use.
Okay.
So they just log in, and they can see exactly what we can see in Viroqua.
And so when I call the office in Viroqua, then the dispatcher puts the call in through a web-based system?
Right. It goes into a web-based software, and then it can be viewed right here.
I'm just trying to explain to the Oshkosh viewers how it all
absolutely.
goes, so when they know, because when they call in, when the non-ambulatory calls in, then they know how the system works.
Right.
It's very important.
It is very important. Absolutely.
And has this exceeded your expectations, like the growth of it, or did you think it was going to grow this quickly?
Well, transportation in general across the state is growing.
Okay.
We're very happy with the quality of growth we've seen here. We've got, our local manager here, Cindy. I don't know if you've met Cindy.
I've talked to her though.
Sure. She's fantastic, and having her in place here, I knew that it would be run as well as it could be run.
Okay.
And we knew to expect, a good quality of service, and you'd expect growth with that. We're very happy, like I said, with the quality and the number of rides that we're giving here. But we'd love to get some more.
And what was the cost of starting something like this up? Because I know it can be costly.
Right. So that was the hardest question that I had to answer off of your questions that you sent me. When you look at starting a business here, now we had to. I want to say initially when we first came over, we had to go out and purchase, I believe it was 10 brand new vans. And the new vans are, in the 30,000s a piece. We had to rent a space. We had to set up phone lines. It gets very costly to set up one of these systems.
Yeah, I'm asking this question because somebody out there in the community might want to start their own business or might want to start their own transportation business. Because, like I said, transportation for the disabled is hard. It's not easy.
Right. And if you were to start a transportation company if you could start slow, we came into this on day one knowing how many rides the system gave the day before. So we knew we had to have a certain amount of vehicles. If I were to start a new company from scratch, maybe I'd start out with one vehicle and maybe only a couple employees and be able to ramp up, what I could offer as the growth allowed, rather than having to come in on day one and just start out providing, 10 full vehicles worth of service every day.
So you guys started out in Verona, and then where did you expand?
So Viroqua was our first taxi contract. Our second taxi contract was in the city of Prairie du Chien.
Okay.
After that, we went to Onalaska, which grew from Onalaska to Onalaska, Holman, and West Salem, which is all over by La Crosse. And then I believe our next one was Portage, Wisconsin. And after that, we grew so fast that I cannot tell you I can't tell you sequentially how we grew. But there was years we had 1 year we added 11 systems. 1 year we added 4 systems.
How many rides a day can it hold? Because, there's only so much, and the system can crack, like in the computers or whatever,
Right. I don't know that number because we haven't hit it yet. But a lot. Our Appleton paratransit system, we transport, I want to say, around upwards of 500 rides a day in the Appleton area. A couple hundred rides a day down in this area. We have smaller communities where we do 50,000, communities of 4,500 people where we do 50,000 trips a year.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah.
Where would you say those areas are?
Well, Viroqua, for instance, where we're headquartered out of, that's
Okay.
one of our busiest small communities. And it's amazing. We do that with 4
So
vehicles.
50,000 a year. How many rides a day is that? I'm just trying to do the math.
Yeah,
here.
that's what I was thinking. I should have done it.
Okay, I'm just trying to do math here
Yeah.
and think about what that number is. Like I said, I'm keeping you
Right.
on the spot here tonight.
Right.
So.
And about 136 trips a day.
Okay.
Now that's 7 days a week, and we do less trips on Saturday and Sunday than we do Monday through Friday. So there's, weekdays probably are 200, weekends are a little less than that.
And is it truly 24 hours?
It is in Oshkosh.
Okay.
Oshkosh is only one of only 2 systems, I believe, 3 systems that we have that run 24 hours a day, which is extremely rare for a system like Oshkosh to do, but it's amazing that they do it. You're very, the citizens of Oshkosh are very fortunate that the city is willing to provide this type of service for the paratransit.
Are you hoping to expand more to 24 hours? Or?
We've tried some in the past. In the smaller communities, there's really
There's no need for
there's
rides?
no need for it, right?
Okay.
In our small rural communities like, Viroqua and other communities like that, Medford, Monroe, Wisconsin, there's just nothing going on after 8, 9 o'clock at night. So, and then nothing really gets going till 6 o'clock in the morning. So to be open overnight, we've tried different projects in different communities, and there's just no ridership. So to be good, to be good stewards of the tax dollars, which help fund this program, we tend to close down once the ridership falls off.
Now, I've heard good things through this program, and I'm not picking on people here when I say this, but do you guys have a weight restriction?
So there are weight restrictions to the...
And like I said, I'm not picking on anybody.
No, absolutely.
So.
Well, and technology and some of the mobility devices that folks use are what creates the weight issues.
Okay.
Okay. But multiple... It seems like every year when they come out with the new standards, there might be a change in the weight restrictions on the ramp. So it's hard to say that the weight restriction is this amount. I know for a lot of years, 600-pound was the weight limit on the ramps.
Because I know you guys don't want to discriminate.
Absolutely. No, we want to make sure that anybody that needs a ride can get one. And with a lot of the bigger power chairs, they're many hundreds of pounds, and that has created some issues over the years. But we haven't seen anybody in this area that's not been able to be served by what we offer, which is good. It takes width is the other piece, and there's some extra wide chairs, they're called, that do create some issues. But most of the time we can overcome those folks. Maybe you can transfer over into a little narrower device or something like that. But we don't see a lot of issues with size restrictions.
Now, when starting a business like running, what kind of state regulations do you have to pass? Or because I'm sure there's a hefty. They just don't let you go out on the road.
Right. So each municipality has the right to set regulations for their municipality. There's insurance limits. There's federal drug and alcohol testing requirements that we have to follow. In Oshkosh, specifically being a paratransit service, we have all the ADA rules that we need to follow, which are federal rules.
Do you know any of them offhand? Because people may not know them, and I mean some of them.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of ADA rules. I know if you go on,
can they find them on runninginc.com?
Well, some of them, like there's some that we're obligated to have listed on there. But if you go to the ADA website, and I don't have the web address, but if you type in ADA regulations in a Google search, it'll bring you to the regulation page. It's hundreds of pages long with different regulations. I mean, it's everything from, the amount of time that a passenger can be on a vehicle, the amount of time they can wait for a pickup, the amount of time that we have to allow them to call prior to their pickup. There's just a whole host of how many minutes you can sit on hold if we were to place you on hold. There's a tremendous amount of regulations that need to be followed.
In our remaining minutes here, what does it take to be a driver?
So to be a driver, all of our drivers, when we interview them, we bring them on board. We do a thorough background check. We do a criminal history background check. We do a driver's license background check. Once they pass those, then we go ahead and we do a pre-employment drug test. Okay. Once they pass that, we bring them on and start training with them. They ride with the driver for a few days. Then our local supervisors are trained in wheelchair securement, so we make sure they go through and get certified in securement techniques. There's a few other customer service type trainings that we have them do, and once they go through all of that, then they can drive.
In our remaining minute and a half here, what kind of vision do you have for the next 5 years for running?
I just would like to see continued growth. We're very happy to be here. We enjoy this community, we enjoy the people, and we just would like to see continued growth, and it'd be nice to see increased funding through the state and federal level, which would allow for that growth.
Have you tried pushing for more funding?
We do. We work very hard. Actually, my dad, Richard, who's the founder of our company, that's one of the things he does. He's very active in the associations that provide public transportation, and he works with people in Madison and Washington all the time to make sure that we continue to get what we need.
And what would you tell somebody in a local community if they want to start something like this?
The opportunity is always out there. There's always a need for this type of transportation. It's daunting. There's a lot you have to go through, with the regulations. And
I'm sure you have to be vetted too and checked. And
Right. There's insurance regulations. You have to have so many $1 million umbrella coverage. The insurance piece is hard to get the right amount of insurance, but you can do it. People do it all the time. So.
Well, Justin, thanks for joining me, and this is Edward Castor. If you have any show suggestion, you can email me at edwardcastor@yahoo.com. Again, thanks for joining me, Justin.
Yep, thank you very much for having me.
And thank you. This is Edward Castor for Making It Happen.